Good afternoon, Bloomers and friends. I'm here doing another episode of AfterBloom, and today I'm here with Craig Dunham, who is a member of Bloom. And what is your job or your ministry at Bloom?
Yeah, I always get this wrong, I am the new member development and church growth team coordinator, team lead, and what that entails is getting new people and people who come to Bloom to become members of Bloom. And being a member of Bloom is really a step above just going to Bloom, because what it does is it gives you a vote, or it gives the member a vote when it comes to things that the congregation is deciding to do as far as the course of Bloom as we move forward.
So, Craig, tell us a little bit about Craig Dunham and where you come from. And
oh my God, almost every time I hear that, I always want to do the line that Steve Martin does from the church. I was born a poor black child in the South, or whatever the line is, but that doesn't work for me. I was born in the East Coast. I was born in New York. Spent all of about a week and a half there. We moved to Pennsylvania just as I was basically coming due. So I did most of my growing up in Pennsylvania, southeast near Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And we moved to Northern California, the San Francisco Bay Area, when I was about 10. And lived there for a number of years. And then I moved. A friend of mine was living in Las Vegas at the time. I got a job, went to go visit him and his wife and his family out in Las Vegas. Ended up getting a job in Las Vegas, lived there for 5 years. Then the job that I had there moved me down to Southern California to Orange County area, so I lived in Long Beach. And then my job, again, was moving me to Riverside, which from Long Beach was a 60-mile commute, and from Palm Springs was a 60-mile commute. But from Long Beach, it took an hour and a half, and from Palm Springs, it took an hour, so Palm Springs won. So that's how I ended up here in the Palm Springs area. I live in Rancho Mirage. I'm very, very happy living over there. And oddly, while I was growing up, obviously, I went with my mom all these places that we moved to. But then when I moved to Las Vegas, she started following me. So she followed me to Vegas. Then she followed me to Southern California, but she came to Palm Springs about the same time I was coming to Palm Springs.
Wow.
And she's a member of Bloom, too.
Yes, we love his mom, let me tell you.
You can adopt her.
Yeah, yeah, and I say that, and I know how you feel about your mom, and the relationship you have with your mom, because I have a very similar relationship with my mom. I love her to death, but there are times when she can just work the left nerve.
Grate your last nerve
Yes.
into powder. Yeah.
So I completely get that, but we do love your mom. We don't have to deal with that side of her church
Much.
Anyways, so how did you find Bloom? What brought you to Bloom?
It was in a way related to a job, oddly enough. I was working at a bartender in one of the bars downtown, and every Sunday my job was, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday was to basically go and open the bar, do all the prep work, all that kind of stuff, get the bar ready to open at noon. And my commute, if you want to call it that, took me right past Bloom at the Demuth Center. So every Sunday I would be driving past and I would see all these signs out on the street, free hugs given here, and, God is still speaking, and all of this kind of stuff. And I had grown up in a Roman Catholic household. We were Catholics when I was growing up. When we moved to California, we weren't necessarily big churchgoers, but we still had our faith and our beliefs and things like that. And when I was living in Long Beach, a friend of mine who had been going to a UCC, United Church of Christ, up in Arcadia, which was about an hour north of Long Beach, she came over and we were talking about different things, and we started talking about religion and faith, and she told me about this church she would go to, and I said, well, come get me, we'll go. And that was Arcadia Congregational, and I was there for about 2 years. I actually longer than that. I served as the clerk for a while. I got very involved with it because I liked both the message of the core values of the church itself, as well as the message of the pastor, Pastor Jolene. And so, going back here to Palm Springs, one of my neighbors took my mom here to Bloom. And so Mom was telling me about it. And so one Sunday, it was the Pet Blessing Sunday, and I was going to surprise my mom and brought my dog Nibbler with me and was going to, stay for a little bit and then run off to work. And lo and behold, Mom didn't show up that day because she was not feeling good. But our neighbor was there, so I gave Pat my dog Nibbler, and I came on to church, came on to work. But then a little bit later, I changed jobs, and I was able to start coming to Bloom. And one of the things that really keeps me going with Bloom is not so much about a book. It's not necessarily a book about the Bible. It's it's not a church about a book about the Bible. It's more about your relationship with God.
Yes.
And it's also your relationship with your version of God. We all have different impressions or different versions of what, we have a different picture in our head of what God looks like, or what God is. And the same can be said for Jesus. And we have all these artist depictions, and some of us will lean towards, the Sistine Chapel, and somebody else will lean towards another image, and that is our image of God. And with Bloom, it doesn't matter what your image of God is, or your the way that you think God's word fits into your life. It's more about your relationship with God. And so it's not you have a different relationship with God than I have, and both are okay. And everybody's relationship with God is okay. And that's really one of the things that's important to me, because like I said, we all have different versions of what God represents to us, and nobody's is wrong, nobody's is right. They're all just different versions, and they can all coexist peacefully and get along and work like this. And it makes Bloom and all of us Bloomers better equipped to deal with things, and we work better together because we don't all have to be the same. We understand that concept. And so that's what keeps me around, is we're allowed to celebrate our differences and yet still be the same.
Yeah. And do you think that that those having those differences, how to word this, for me, I guess the message is still the same. It's just viewed differently.
Correct. It's kind of like one of the things, if you watch those police procedural shows, or you read, thrillers and cop books, one of the things that they'll talk about every once in a while is 5 people see an accident, and they have 5 different versions of the accident. The same accident, but 5 different versions of what happened. And again, it doesn't mean that any one of those versions is wrong. And that's the same kind of thing with Bloom, is we all have our different versions, and we all come to it from a different way. And even though the message is still the same, we all interpret it differently. We all see it through our own lenses of experience and history and background and our dreams of the future and and our own perceptions. And so again, even though the message is the same, it's how we read it, it's how we interpret it. I tend to be a very debating person. I used to get in online debates all the time, especially about things like religion and faith, because there are people who, there's a cartoon I've seen many times where it says, if this is the way you're using your Bible, you're using it wrong. And it shows, some preacher beating somebody over the head with the Bible.
Yes, I've seen it.
And it's kind of the same way with me. And so I will get into these discussions, these debates with people about what this means and what that means. And I was very involved in Bloom's Bible Bites classes, not really classes, but meetings that we would have on Wednesdays, where people got to, you would read a passage and people got to express what they thought it meant. And Rev Kev would pop in with what he thought it meant and with what some of his theology teachers thought it meant and what various theologians thought it meant. And so again, nobody was wrong. They were all these different things, and they could all coexist. Yeah,
and sometimes they open your eyes to a slightly different view than what you have.
Oh yeah,
and a slightly different understanding, and that's the beauty of coming together this way and having a discussion about it, as opposed to someone just telling you about it.
Correct. Correct. It's very much that way because you do. It's one of the things that they say is when it comes to your education, you never stop learning.
Yes.
And I believe that no matter what it is, whether it's race or religion or politics or gender or the Mets or the Yankees or whatever, everybody will have a different opinion. And again, it doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't make it right. It makes it different. But what is the good thing is when you can grow by hearing somebody else's thoughts on the matter.
Yes.
And incorporating it into your own. There's a line from a movie, I want to say it was a Tom Selleck movie from way back in the 80s, but I can't remember for sure. And the line was something about, they were talking about Japan, and how one of the things that Japanese culture does is it takes the best of the world and makes it its own. And so it will take all of these different ideas, find out how it works, and incorporate it into what they're doing. And no matter what we do in our lives, we should all be really doing that. We can have our core values and our core beliefs and the core ways we think, but being able to incorporate and think about other people's ways that they think and the way that they do things and the way that they work helps us grow as people and as a society and as culture, as civilization. It helps us grow.
Yeah, even when we're frustrated by it.
Even when we're frustrated by it.
Well, tell me now, what does Bloom inspire in you?
Bloom inspires in me. That is a really good question. I'm involved in a lot of different organizations throughout the valley and different things, and Bloom inspires in me a way to take my faith and my belief structure and work it into other ways of thinking and doing things. And Bloom inspires in me a way to try and get other people to open their eyes. That it's all not just this box, there's a world outside that box.
Yeah.
And to think outside that box. And that's really kind of one of the things that Bloom inspires me, because Bloom is not just about that box. It's one of the UCC's lines they used to say, thinking outside the stained glass window.
Yes, exactly.
And it's that same kind of thing. It's thinking outside that box. And, again, because we all have our different backgrounds and faith structures and belief structures, being able to see other people's views is thinking outside that box or outside that stained glass window.
Yes. Wow. Well, Craig, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been wonderful chatting with you and getting to learn a little more about you.
Yay!
And one of these days we're going to get your mama on this.
Oh, be afraid. Be very afraid.
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I want to thank you for joining us.
And thank you.
Bloomers, if you can join us this Sunday, we're going to have a wonderful service as always. The pastor is on sabbatical, but we have another wonderful pastor filling in this Sunday. Who is filling in this Sunday?
I don't know. Is it Reverend Ron?
It might be. It might be. And if it is, we're in for a real treat. Last Sunday was quite a treat too with the other Reverend Ron. His message was very powerful. So if you can be with us this Sunday, that would be awesome. But if you can't be with us this Sunday, well, be with us in spirit and keep us in your prayers as we keep you in ours. And until next time, we'll see you later.